This program proudly brought to you by Toyota, Amy, lucky you're with Amy, and Bunnings Warehouse, where lowest prices are just the beginning.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Melbourne Cricket Ground, the first final in the VB series. 9 preliminary rounds and then there was 2. Australia taking on Pakistan on the first of these 3-match final series for the VB series of 2005. With me, Mark Nicholas here at the MCG, and well, the Pakistanis, Mark, come into this game with high expectation because they knocked off the Aussies on Sunday in Perth.
Yeah, they've got high expectation. I think there's a lot better cricket to come from them as well. We've heard all through the summer that they're mercurial. At times they've been positively miserable, but actually we've seen them win 2 games. So I think they'll begin to believe in themselves better. I think for them coming to play in Australia is a very tough call, and they've made it look tough. They've caught so badly, it's nearly unbelievable. But their ground field has improved. They're now batting with real depth. The performances of Razzaq and Afridi down the order, quite exceptional at times, so I don't expect Australia to pitch the ball up to them all the time. And they bowled with a bit of conviction. Rana's a key figure in that. So, yeah, I mean, I think Pakistan will play better, but I think Australia have been in cruise control. I expect them to go through the gears a bit too.
I was going to say, have the Australians been a bit flat over the last month?
Well, Australia have fiddled. I mean, they haven't played their best side often enough. I wonder whether that'll cost them. They've stuck very closely to players like Matthew Hayden that have had difficult times, and that's an invaluable idea, but if it changes the balance of the team or changes momentum by losing a game, it isn't necessarily a good thing. So it may be that they've stuttered, but I think there's enough class in the team, as I say, for them to move through the gears a bit now.
You mentioned Matthew Hayden. Is he in Australia's best 11 for this first final?
Can't be. I mean, and that's no disrespect to one of the world's finest batsmen, a modern-day player of brutal power and of great consistency. But the fact is, he's not playing his best, and Michael Clarke has devastated everybody opening the innings. There's enough players for Australia who can fill in at 5, 6, 7 and 8, whereas Clarke can do too much damage opening with Gillespie for it to be logical for anybody but perhaps Hayden himself and conceivably Ricky Ponting to think that Matthew should play. It's a blip. I'm sure he'll be back in the side in New Zealand, but I'd be very surprised if he was chosen today. OK,
before we talk a little further of this first VB final, many of our interstate wide world of sports team members arrived at the MCG today not knowing what to expect, because in the last 48 hours, fair dinkum, the weather has been as poor as you'd ever want to see it. It turned over a crane here at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. We had 120 millimetres of rain in 24 hours. Even the sign thought it was too obvious to tell you it was wet and it was raining.
Well, 2 evenings ago, we thought we had a storm in Sydney. We did have something pretty unbelievable, but this blew the mind. In fact, our camera positions were threatened, security issues around the development area where they're building the new stand, they were threatened, but thankfully we've recovered to such a degree as we're talking about 21 degrees and we've got a sunlit outfield.
Isn't that amazing? From all we saw 24 hours ago here in Melbourne to what we see now is simply spectacular. And look, great credit to a ground that has just been laid for that drainage, 120 millimetres in 24 hours was extraordinary.
It was, and if we go back to 2 weeks before Christmas, and we remember all the newspaper and television shots of this ground, it didn't even have turf on it. I mean, this was just a heap of mud, and they got it ready for the test match quite brilliantly, and now they've got it ready after all that water for a one-day, and it's a newly laid piece of turf, and I mean, really, they've done particularly well.
Well, our pictures show the outfield looking absolutely perfect on what a pitch is like. Here's Greg Ian Heels to tell us all about it.
Well, I've got to say, I always look forward to the final series because of that extra little bit of pressure that is brought to bear on both sides. Heels, pressure?
I think there's a lot, more than just a little, and I think that's the unknown. How is Pakistan going to respond to that pressure? No one really knows. I think it's going to bring the best out in them, and I think Australia have been playing some stale cricket. I think they're ready to fire too.
Right, we'll find out who handles the pressure best, that's for sure. Out in the centre, it's quite incredible, actually. After all that rain, we've talked about it a few times, the outfields of Australia are the best in the world. It's soaked it up, isn't it? I mean, it's just walking out to the centre here, you wouldn't know that they had more rain here a couple of days back than they've had in the history of, well, ever since they've been measuring rainfall here.
I think it's 50 years, the hardest rains in 50 years, and all there is on this outfield is a light film of moisture. That's it. There's no puddles, there's no wet patches. It's hard and firm and ready for a VB final, that's for sure.
Right, so if the rain stays away, there's no doubt that things are going to get underway. Just a few points on this pitch. This is not the pitch that the groundsman wanted to use. This is the pitch that was used at the weekend in the Pura Cup match. The pitch they wanted to use is over there, but unfortunately the weather was such that that just wasn't possible. I'm going to give this the key treatment for the first time for a while. I haven't done this for a while, just to see if there's any moisture there. Very hard to get through the surface, almost impossible, but I can tell you that just underneath that surface, if I really try hard enough, you'll see there is just a little bit of moisture there. So there is a crust, and that is what the groundsman's happy about. If it's nice and hard on the top, it should carry through, although he hasn't, Heels, been able to get enough rolling in, according to the groundsman. He'd like to have rolled it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Any indicators down there?
I think that's this is how the players find out about that moisture. I thought you struggled to get down that low too, Greggy, there. But the players come in and put their spikes just in on the edge of the pitch so it doesn't affect anything, and that's how they find what the surface is like and then what's underneath the surface. And so I think the players have found a little bit of moisture there as well, and I think both sides might have to bowl, and I think that'll suit Pakistan too, because they like to chase down totals better, I think.
Yeah, Pakistan definitely. I think if they win the toss or field, they like to bat last. They like to chase. Aussies, do you think you're going to do that?
Well, they won't mind it. If it seems around, I think they'll like the conditions too, and they're pretty good at chasing, that's for sure. The unknown is how much part to play the spinners will have because of the wet outfield or the moist outfield. Will that affect the gripping of the ball? I don't think so.
Right, well, the other thing, of course, I'm looking forward to the toss, because we'll find out at the toss whether Matthew Hayden's going to be playing in this match, and there's been a lot of speculation about